Okay. All right. So for 90 plus years, the SAT was a paper pencil test, and then it changed just a couple of years ago into a digital test. And that's the way it's going to be. So it's not, we're getting ready for the March 14th test. And what's good about that is you'll have May and June to take it again if you want to. So it's not an intelligence test. It's a test of the reading, writing, and math skills that you've had in school. Consequently, preparation can significantly improve your score. So if you have a 500 math score and Purdue wants a 600 math score, that's 100 points, but it's only 10 questions. So every question is about 10 points. Okay. And so you spent thousands of hours getting your grade point average. This is the second thing that colleges are going to look at. And it also is critical for scholarship money. So, familiarizing yourself with the format and the content will benefit you greatly. And so you can maximize your score. Usually, the math is not exactly what like the math was that you had in school. You already had the PSAT, so that is already behind you. So we're not going to go over that. So it's a module base with 2 reading and 2 write and 2 math modules. So by going digitally, there's no essay. There used to be an essay on the test. No essay involved, although we're going to help you with the Common App essay next week. So the actual test takes about 2 hours and 14 minutes to complete. And here's the time breakdown. So the first module is 32 minutes. Second module is 32 minutes. And here's the math. So the scoring, as you probably know, is between a 200 and an 800. 500 is average, which is getting half the questions right. Well, if you got half the questions right at school, you'd be failing, right? Here, so we want you to get up to 2/3 or 3/4 and gain yourself scholarship money. Now, if you see super score, I got to make this a little smaller. Super score on a college application, that means they're taking the best math and the best reading from 2 different tests. So another thing that's important is you don't have to send your scores in. You used before previously the College Board would send out all the tests you took. Now you can selectively pick the scores you want to send. So that's a bonus. So if they super score, they take the best math and the best reading from different sittings. So that makes sense. And so, like, you might hit the math out of the park in March, but you think, oh, I think I want to try my reading score again. You still have to take the whole test, but that's what this term means on a college application. So a lot of scholarships are available at different SAT, at different levels. So I know, for example, how I got into this really was my own 4 children. And so I saw how that benefited them. And my oldest son got into Penn State, Maine Schreier Honors College. And the honors colleges are 1350. And you get a significant boost in tuition. And so here are the dates the SAT is offered. And like I said, we're getting ready for March 14th. So you probably have to sign up for the test by about mid-February. So you could take it in May or June. You could even take it your senior year, But then you run into early admissions and these colleges can't see your scores in time. Okay. And think of any questions you might have because, okay, so now I'm going to switch to my son Jim and he's going to go over the different software. So you couldn't reach your,
I left a message. I couldn't.
okay. One second.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take a look at the Blue Book testing software now. I'm going to just describe it a little bit. So I'll start with the requirements. Windows devices work, Macs also work, iPads or Mac laptops. School managed Chromebooks will work with the Blue Book testing software, but personal Chromebooks are not permitted. Android and Samsung tablets don't work. They won't work with the Blue Book software, just Mac, laptops, iPads, and Windows devices. So you will bring your fully charged device to the testing center as well as the device's power cord and portable charger if you like. But they don't guarantee you necessarily access to an outlet. So just be aware of that. I would bring a charger just in case, but I think they just are trying to cover themselves by saying that. Okay, so if you do not have a device that you can use for the test, you can borrow one from your school, a family member, or a friend. We don't recommend borrowing one from the college board just because they don't guarantee that they will send you one. So you have to request a device from them at least 30 days in advance before the test. And then you have to arrive at the testing center even earlier to try to find your device if they even send you one. But a request to the college board does not guarantee that they will provide you with a device, which is why we recommend just getting one from your school or one from a family member if you don't have one. Your school device, if you have a device already that you use at your school, it might already have Blue Book installed on it. If not, I'm going to explain a little bit about how to get it. So you can download Blue Book from here.
They took the PSAT. They probably already have it.
You may already have Blue Book on your device if you used it for the PSAT. Um, it's called Blue Book. I think they named it after this Blue Book. They've been selling this paper Blue Book for years and years and years. So I think that's why they call the testing software itself Blue Book. But that is what you will use to take the actual SAT as well as all of your SAT practice tests. So currently you can take 7 practice tests with the Blue Book software. They don't count for anything. No one will see the score. No colleges will see those scores. Currently, there are tests 4 through 10 available on Blue Book. They discontinued tests 1, 2, and 3. They're just gone. So we're actually going to have you take test 4 this weekend, Saturday or Sunday, just to get a sort of baseline of where you are. But this is where you get the software. You can get it from the collegeboard.org website or the App Store. Um, Oh yeah, so all the requirements for devices is available at collegeboard.org. But if you, as long as you have a relatively modern Mac, iPad, laptop, or Windows laptop, it should work. And yeah, so the Blue Book software allows you to do many things. It allows you to select between multiple choice answers. It allows you to cross off the incorrect answers as you go and mark questions for review.
You also need a college board login.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that.
Okay.
So the Blue Book software also allows you to highlight or underline portions of the question as you're taking the test, which is going to be very useful, particularly on the English. And as Mrs. Sessler was just mentioning something, she was saying that you also need to have your College Board login and password in order to take a practice test. And if you do not know what your College Board login or password is, your guidance counselor may know, but I'm assuming that most of you already have an account with College Board, particularly if you've been taking PSAT 10 or you took the PSAT. You probably already have this. If not, you can create one, but I would just double check with maybe your guidance counselor to see that maybe you already have one. But yeah, so once you have Blue Book installed on your device, you can log in with your College Board account and password. And if it's a school managed device, the IT department at your school will have to install Blue Book because they don't let you install anything on the device. Typically, they're pretty locked down school devices. But if it's a school device, it may already have Blue Book on it. They know that students need Blue Book. So you may already have the software. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little bit about how the test is an adaptive test. So when they redesigned the test and made it digital, they decided to make it an adaptive test. So that means that how well you do on the first module of the test in English and math affects the type of second module that you will see for that area, for that content area. So I'm just going to give you like, let's just think hypothetically here. Let's say that you do really well on the first English module. There are two English modules. So if you do really well in the first module, maybe you only missed one or two questions on the entire module, you will actually see a much more difficult second module. So the English questions, they would become much more difficult. But this is actually a very good thing because this allows you to get a much higher score than you would otherwise be able to get. Unfortunately, the reverse is true, so that if you score really poorly on the first English module or the first math module for that matter, you will see an easier second module. But that's bad news for you because that effectively caps your score. You will no longer be able to get like a really awesome score that you would need to get into a top school because the test sort of learns from you and it learns your ability level as you're taking it. And so the questions will become easier because it knows that you can't handle those harder questions. So it shows you an easier second module, but that's really bad news for you because you can no longer get a really high score. So the first module is actually very important that you lock in a solid score with it. Everyone sees the same first module. So it doesn't matter who you are. The first modules are identical for everyone, but then the test learns from you. It'll either know that you're missing a lot of questions or it'll know that you're solid and you're not missing really any or many at all. Yeah. Okay. So by making an adaptive test, I think there are a couple reasons they chose to make it adaptive. The number one reason is it made a much shorter test. So the old paper SAT was exactly 3 hours in length. The new test is only 2 hours and 14 minutes. So they shaved off roughly 45 minutes just by making it adaptive. And they claim that it's just as valid as the old test was with regard to the score scale out of 1600. So it's much shorter than it used to be, which is good news. Um, and then the other reason they made it a digital test in an adaptive test is just for testing security. So when you're taking an exam, a real SAT exam, no one's on the same question. You're just, so you couldn't really possibly cheat off someone else's device if they're sitting near you. So that's probably the few main reasons why they made it digital. They felt that they could make a shorter test. It's easier for them to grade them, obviously, too. Okay, so I'm going to go over a little bit about the pacing. So there is a time constraint to the SAT. So you should answer about a question per minute as you are taking the test. The actual breakdown will be 1.19 minutes per question for the English and 1.59 minutes per question in a math module. So they give you a little bit more time per question for a math module. If you're realizing that a problem is taking too long to solve, don't spend 5 minutes trying to solve the math question. Pick an answer for now if it's a multiple choice question and mark the question for review. So you can always go back to the question if there's time remaining in the module, and there'll just be a ticker at the top of the screen counting down the time left for the module that you are on. So you'll always know how much time is left and you can mark the question for review and say you get to the end of the module, you finished all the other questions. Now you can go back. You made an educated guess for the time being, but now you can go back and really see if you can get the correct answer with your remaining time. So always pick an answer. There's no guessing penalty on the SAT. So always put down something, just make an educated guess. Just so if time were to run out, something is selected. Make sure that you pick something when you move on to the next question, because even if you randomly guess, you have a 1 in 4 chance of getting it correct for a multiple choice question. And maybe if you make an educated guess, let's say it's a math module and you realize that the answer must be non-negative and you can rule out two of the answer choices. Now it's a coin toss. Now it's 50-50. So definitely guess. And, if you can make an educated guess. So pick something, mark the question for review. As long as there's time left in the module, you can go back. But once the module is over, you'll never see that question again. It'll just grade it.
Can you scratch paper?
Yeah, so they'll provide you with scratch paper for the actual SAT, and when you're taking a practice test at home, you will use scratch paper. And we just ask that you take the test under time. Well, it will be timed, but just make sure you take the test under real test conditions. Don't cheat, don't use your phone, don't use any other outside devices because you won't have access to any of those in the testing center, so it doesn't make sense to use them now. Okay, so yeah, so once you finish all the problems you could easily solve, then you'll be able to go back as long as there's time remaining in that module. There's no guessing penalty on the digital SAT, so answer every multiple choice question. Even if you are uncertain of the answer, never leave blank question. All right, so we're planning on taking 3 practice digital SATs throughout this course. We're going to suggest you take one this weekend, test 4. If you haven't taken any yet, just take the first one, which is test 4. Tests 1 through 3 are discontinued, so you won't be able to see those anymore. So the real true first test now is number 4. But there are tests 4 through 10 are available now. So we have 7 total that are available. We're going to plan on taking 3 of them throughout this course. We're going to take one this weekend, one around the middle, and then one getting a little closer to that March SAT date. And we typically see a big improvement. Usually we see a big jump by the time students take test 2 in score because you're getting more familiar with the test and you're learning the patterns on the test. Plus you're working with Mrs. Hessler and I on any areas that you maybe struggle with. And you can review your practice test after you take it. So your score will be on collegeboard.org. So you take the test with the Blue Book software. It sends it to the College Board, but no schools will ever see it. But that's how you actually go over your test. You just log in with that same login and password at collegeboard.org, and then you can see all the questions that you missed and the solutions. So it'll show you the type of question that you missed. Maybe it was an algebra question. You can see the content area that you're maybe missing more questions on. If you miss a few algebra, if you miss that domain, then you realize, okay, I need to work on the algebra questions, or maybe it's geometry, or maybe it's reading comprehension or grammar. It'll show you what the type of question was that you missed, but it'll also show you the solution. The solutions are also in this book. They're in the Blue Book. Oh, and I should mention this. This is just tests 4 through 10. So the same tests that are on Blue Book are in print form here. And that's why we use the actual College Board test book because, it's the closest thing you have to the test. Because they're just as valid as the real test. There is a standardized test, so this will be exactly like the one they give you in March, no surprises. And we can literally say that you will have seen every type of question with us before you take the actual SAT, because we stay on top of what they test, the content that they test on. So yeah, so you can go over the questions that you missed after you take a practice test, and that's really where you're going to find the a way to really boost your score because you may have thought that you understood that math concept. Maybe you thought you understood how to find the zeros of that equation, but the test will show you quite quickly if you have any kind of deficiencies. So that's kind of the annoying thing about the SAT. If you have any deficiencies in math or English, it will let you know immediately what they are, but that's also a chance to improve, right? And so next time you'll see that question, you'll remember, oh man, this is just like that last one I took, because the questions are very similar. It's a very predictable test. After you take a few of these, you're going to realize just how predictable they are. Like the numbers will change. If it's a math question, maybe you're solving for n instead of x this time, but they're still testing you on the intersection of two lines, or they're still testing you on quadratics or whatever the circle on the coordinate plane. They don't have really any surprises. We can promise you that you'll see a circle on the coordinate plane question. That's why we're going to go over one today. Um, but yeah, so every class that isn't a practice test, every Wednesday we're just going to be doing half math and half English. And then each of our lessons is just broken down into a different math or English concept. So maybe one week you're doing triangles for the math. Maybe the next week you're going to do a grammar lesson. We just cover everything that's on the test, nothing that isn't.
But we can do a break halfway
Yeah,
through.
we take a little break in the middle, and feel free to grab a snack or bring a drink, and you can be in your pajamas. We really don't care. We're just gonna go over all the questions that you will need to get a great score on this test.
And if
Um,
there's ever a power outage.
oh yeah, Mrs. Hessler brought up a good point. So if the stream ever drops, if this Zoom call ever drops for any reason, it may mean that we had a power outage. It has happened before. Just give it like 5 minutes and then reconnect. Try to reconnect to the call. It has happened, so that's why we got to mention it. So yeah, if you suddenly lose us, maybe the internet was just flaky or something, but we have always been able to get it back online. But I mean, literally, there was a thunderstorm and I could see the students drop. I just see their video feeds go away, and then ours went out too. So it has happened before. It's possible. All right, so I'm going to keep going along here with this packet. Okay, so they do give you a formula page when you're taking the test. So if you're in a math module, you can always look at all of these formulas. You just click a button while you're taking a test on Blue Book, and they'll always show you these shapes. So they give you a lot of geometric formulas here. They give you some 2D formulas as well as some 3D shapes, and these are all on the test. Cones are absolutely on the test. We recently saw one of those on an exam. So it's nice that they give you some of these figures. They give you the Pythagorean theorem. I think that it's a little mean, however, that there are many formulas that they do not provide on the formula page. For example, the quadratic formula, you'll need that. It's not here. You'll need the circle on the coordinate plane formula. That's not here. You'll need the vertex formula for a quadratic. It's not here. So I think it's a little unfair that they provide you with a formula page, but it's not an exhaustive list of all those formulas that you need. There's no slope formula here, but you'll need it. So they give you some of the geometry, which is useful. They also tell you that there are 360 degrees or 2 pi radians in a circle, and that the sum of the angles in a triangle add up to 180. Yeah, so they give you some information on the formula page. It will be useful to have. I want to say that there are no imaginary or complex numbers on the SAT anymore, so you don't have to worry about I being the square root of -1. They got rid of that, so you don't have to know it. You'll need that for your regular math class, but you're not going to need that for the SAT. So that's kind of nice. No imaginary or complex numbers, and they do give you a formula page. Okay, so it's just one thing I want to mention while you're taking an SAT, time is money. So we don't want you to read the directions, which is an odd thing for an instructor to say, but you'll be wasting time by reading the directions. You'll know the directions by the time you take your real SAT. They never changed. The directions are printed in here if you really want to read them. I'm only mentioning this because there is a specific type of question that has a page worth of directions right here. If you were to read this on test day, these are all directions you kind of need to know, but that's why I'm just going to go over them all now. But it would take 5 or 10 minutes to read all of these directions. So that's why we say don't read the directions while you're taking the test. You just need to be answering questions because you need all of that time to answer those questions. So for student produced responses, there are special directions. So most of the questions on the test, all of the English is multiple choice. 75% of the math is multiple choice, but 25% of the math will be a student produced response. So these are not multiple choice. So if the answer is 4, you type in a 4. If the answer is 6, type in a 6. And if the answer is 2/3, you can type in 2/3. And I'm going to talk about the decimals. That's where these directions get kind of complicated. What if you wanted to input a decimal answer? How precise do we have to be? Well, you wouldn't be able to put in point 0.6 for that example. So I'm going to go over all these directions so you just know about what to expect with the student produced response. And yeah, it's just so you don't have to read these if you take the test this weekend, don't waste time reading them. I'm just going to go over them now. So these are the directions for a student produced response. So sometimes in the math, more than one answer could be correct. You just pick an answer that works. So maybe they're asking for a positive integer less than 5. You could type in 4, you could type in 3, just pick something. Don't try to put them all in, you'll get it wrong. But sometimes more than one answer will be correct, particularly if you have an inequality that you solved. You can enter up to 5 characters for a positive answer and up to 6 characters for an answer that's negative, including the negative sign. If your answer is a fraction that does not fit in the provided space, enter the decimal equivalent. If your answer is a decimal that doesn't fit in the provided space, enter it by truncating or rounding at the fourth digit. That's the main rule that you have to remember, truncate or round at the fourth digit. Okay. If your answer is a mixed number, such as 3 1/2, you cannot enter 3 1/2. The computer will read that as 31 halves and you'll get the question wrong. So you can enter it as an improper fraction, which would be 7 halves. That would be correct. Or you can enter the decimal equivalent, which would be 3.5. You will not enter any symbols such as the percent sign, comma, or dollar sign. They'll just ask you what they want in the question. So if they want the answer in cents and the answer is 50 cents, you would just type in 50. If they want the answer in dollars, you type in maybe it's $1.50, you just type in 1.5. That would work, or 1.50. So you'll know what they want. If it's a percent, they will tell you if they want the percent or if they want the decimal equivalent. So if the question is asking for the percent and the answer is 50%, you just type in 50. The test knows that you mean 50%. You don't put any percent sign in. And if they're asking for the decimal in the question, you would put in 0.5. And let's say the answer is 1,000. You don't need to put a comma in there after the one. You just type in 1000. And yeah, so this is just a breakdown of correct ways to answer and incorrect ways to answer. So here's that 3.5 example I just went over. You could also put in 7 halves, but 31, it'll read it as 31 halves. You'll get it wrong. So watch out for mixed numbers. You can't enter any mixed number like this. You'll get it wrong. Improper fractions are fine, or decimals are fine. If you have a repeating decimal like 2/3, you can enter 2/3, right? You just type, that's probably how I would enter that fraction. But you could also enter 0.6666 or 0.6667. And if you decided to put a 0 in front of the decimal place, that actually influences how precise you have to be with your answer. And you can actually be a little less precise because they consider that trailing 0 to be a digit, which is very interesting. I mean, that's not really how significant figures work. I mean, this is just something that's very particular to the SAT. And you won't really see this for any other test. It's just kind of how their software works, I guess. They consider if you get a fraction that's less than 1, they consider that leading 0 to be a digit. All right, so those are decimal answers, repeating decimals, round or truncate of the fourth digit. Negative answers are fine. You just enter in -1/3 or the decimal equivalent. And here again, if you put the 0 in front of the decimal point, you don't really need to go as far. So just remember that. And then here's the dollar sign situation. If the answer is $2.53, you just enter that. And you don't have to worry about this comma here. If 68,132 is the answer, you just type in 68132. And then the percent, they'll tell you if they want the decimal version of the percent or if they want you to input the percent and omit the percent symbol. So I know a lot of directions, but can you imagine if you read these on test day? You lose 5 minutes at least, maybe more. I think that took longer than 5 minutes for me to get through. So that's why we don't want you to read the directions while you're taking the test. It's very self-explanatory. They just have A, B, C, and D. For the most part, you're just picking an answer. These are really the only complicated directions. The other ones are pretty simple, as you would expect. It's nice that they give you a whole button to cross off a whole answer choice if you know it's the wrong answer. That way you won't accidentally pick it. Yeah, so the test is pretty self-explanatory other than those complicated math directions, but that's why I went over them just now for everyone.
So ask them about if they are
Oh
familiar.
yeah, Mrs. Hessler wants me to ask you guys, have you seen Desmos? It kind of looks like this.
So just raise your hand if
You
you've
guys
seen
used
them.
this before? Yeah, she's asking for a show of hands. Most of you have. Yeah, yes. Lissa's seen it as well. Okay, so this is the calculator that's built into the test. It is an incredibly powerful graphing calculator. I'm kind of blown away that they even allow you to use something this powerful. It's amazing. So I like the TI calculator, this Texas Instrument calculator. It's a nice calculator. It's not anywhere, it's a graphing calculator, but this is nowhere near as nice as Desmos. So if I want to use this graphing calculator, I have to get any equation or function into y equals form or f of x equals form. For Desmos, you don't have to do that at all. You just type in what they give you. So if they give you this circle here, you can just type that in and it'll pop out that circle right there. So you'll be able to figure out what the center of that circle is. You can even figure out what the diameter is and then divide that by 2 if you needed the radius for a question. So it can graph circles. My TI calculator, I use this thing in college. I still have the same one. It can't graph circles. It can only graph functions. So a circle fails the vertical line test. So my TI calculator unfortunately can't graph it. So Desmos already wins there. Plus, it doesn't have to be in y equals form. You just type in whatever they give you. And say we want to graph a quadratic, say we want to graph a parabola like this to find the zeros. This would factor. We could factor this pretty easily, but you don't have to. The zeros are at -1 and 2. And that took 2 seconds. All you had to do was just type it into Desmos. And I mean, yeah, it'd be nice if you could factor that, but you don't have to necessarily. You can use Desmos to solve a lot of questions. Intersecting lines, for example, just type in both equations and you'll see the point right on the graph where the lines cross. Just give them what they want, the x value or the y value or whatever. It can even graph trigonometric functions like this cosine function here. It can graph sine, cosine. It can solve things in radians or degrees. So it's really, really powerful. I'm kind of surprised they even let you use something this powerful because it's useful for a lot of questions. So usually there's an algebra way to solve a math question, but you can graph it. Like if it gets you the right answer, you can even just use this to check your answer. Maybe you thought you factored this correctly. Well, type it into Desmos. It's not going to take very long, and you can check it to make sure that you did it right. So you can access Desmos at any time in a math module. You just click a button, and it's awesome. So we really like Desmos. All right, so that's just a rundown of the stuff I mentioned here. Oh, it'll show you the vertex of this parabola. If you click that graph right there, it'll give you X and Y. It'll tell you what it is. So you don't have to complete the square. You don't have to necessarily, I mean, we want you to know that vertex formula, and it's not on the formula page, and we're going to tell it to you. But if you forget it, just click right on the parabola right there, right in the vertex. It'll tell you what it is. You can click on the circle if you want to know a point on the circle. So it's really nice. I like Desmos. All right, so anything you think I still have to mention?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, so I'm gonna hand you guys back to Mrs. Hessler for a little bit of math here.
Okay, so also one thing, Jim, I want to uh, as we go through this,
Mhm.
on each module, there are 2 experimental questions. And you say, what do you mean? I pay them and they're experimenting on me? Yes, they're using you as guinea pigs. They're field testing questions for the future, but you won't know which ones they are. So
Try your best on everything.
so we ask you to try your best on everything, okay? And asking any questions so far? No? Okay, good. Thank you. Now, we're going to go over a strategy that can get you 50 points on every test. So was everybody familiar with Desmos here? Just raise your hand again. They all are?
Yeah.
Okay. Julie, you've seen Desmos? Okay, good. So that could get you like 50 more points for 5 questions. So here's a strategy, and it's called picking numbers. And you have to forgive us because it is hard to write on this glass screen. So say they give you this question. The rate for a telephone, and Jacob, we're mailing you your book and your packets. Uh, it was just so fast that we couldn't get you you'll have it for next week. Okay. So we went through quite a bit. Let me get myself where I need to be. Okay, so say you have this question. The rate for a telephone call between two cities is 50 cents for the first 2 minutes and 20 cents for each additional minute or portion thereof. Which of the following functions represents the cost in dollars of a phone call between these two cities that lasts for n minutes, where n is a positive number? And you go, I'm going to live in my parents' garage for my whole life. Here's a strategy to pick a number. It's not cheating. Don't pick 1,000 or a fraction. We'll all do the same thing here. Let's say, let's say that our n is 5 minutes. Okay? We're just picking a reasonable number. And this is to give you, I'm giving you another tool in your belt for the test. So the first 2 minutes are going to be 50 cents. And then we have 3 minutes that are 20 cents each. So that's 60 cents. So our call is going to last $1.10. Everybody see that? Okay. So now we look at the answer choices. Which one, when I put in 5 as n, is going to give me $1.10? It's not going to be A because A gives me $1, right? That makes sense? Would it be B? If I put in 5 for n, I'll get $1 plus 10 cents. Wow, thank you, College Board, for 10 points, right? And that was, I mean, it what it does is it takes the real abstract word problem or algebra problem and puts it down into reality. Did everybody sort of, let me see if you sort of got that. Just do a thumbs up if you sort of caught the strategy. Okay, Jacob's got it. Okay, good. Mom's got it. Alyssa's. This will give you an appreciation for what she's facing. Okay, so now this is a real difficult one. And again, it's hard to write on this screen, so my cursive is much better in person. So let's look at this hard question. The formula above gives the payment needed to pay a loan of D dollars at R% interest rate over M months. Which of the following? So here's, you get one of these on every test. You have to get the D to stand alone, and you just cross off this in terms of M, R, and P. So we want to get the D to stand alone, but they made it look very complicated. So let me break it down for you. What if I had P equals dA, that's a D, over B? If I was going to get the D to stand alone here, I would multiply by a B and then divide by A. So here what I'm doing, pardon?
You can cross off the A and B now, right?
Yeah. So I would have the D standing alone, correct? So think of this whole mess up here. That's going to be my A, and this is going to be my B. And so all I want to do is multiply this by B over A. So I want to take this bottom term, which is the B, and put it up here, and take this term and put it down there. Do you sort of see it a little bit? So which one would have this term in the denominator and this term in the numerator? Anybody see it? Jacob, do you take a guess? What do you think?
Is it C?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, great. Now I'll go through it slowly because I want everybody to get it. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this whole term and bringing it up to here, and I'm taking this whole term and putting it in the denominator. Okay, so Sailor, do you see it, honey, or not really? You see it. Okay, what about you, Julie? Don't say it. You see it? Good. So now I don't have
Just keep going.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do a couple. So I'm going to do a couple book problems, but Jacob doesn't have the book yet. So where do I go to get the?
Hold on.
I had to get my technology person. Yeah,
See.
1 second. Now that is as difficult as it gets.
Oh, there it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, and that's some other
yeah,
information.
we have some other information for you.
There you go.
So in the cover of your book, in the inside cover of your book, would you write down my email? And then would you write down the College Board website? And this is our organization. Okay, so I'm on my email all day long. So if you ever have a question and you think of me as a nurturing mom, we're your coaches. We're going to be screaming when you get the SAT of your dreams. Okay, SAT score of your dreams. So just write these three down. And also, there's an additional website. I think you probably know about Comic Con Academy, but we found this other site. It's one prep. We have no allegiance with it. It's oneprep.xyz. So just put that in the cover of your book. They have 20,000 questions on there. And you say to me, Mrs. Hessler, I need a life. I can't be doing 20,000 questions. And we realize that you can't even go through this whole book. But if you're like weak in polynomials, you can go on this site and they have easy, middle, and hard ones. So it just gives you, like Martin Luther King Day is going to be next Monday. And so you take your practice test, you sleep in on Martin Luther King Day, you get some hot chocolate, and then you can go over the questions you missed or try one prep XYZ if you get a little confused. Okay, so I'm going to do a book problem, but because Jacob doesn't have the book, I'm just going to write the question out here. It's not so bad. You'll have your book soon, Jacob, so it's not a worry. So we're going to go, if you girls, you have the book, so go to 719 in the book. This is an easy one. Okay, so this is question, what I want to do is on 719, because I always do our packets, but we also do questions in the book, so you actually see it on the test. Number 10, and I'm just going to write it out for Jacob. So this is so easy, you're going to feel insulted. It's on a module 1, 12t plus b equals c. Which of the following corrects? So we're trying to find C minus B in terms, what does it have? In terms of T.
Yeah.
So all we want to do is find C minus B. So the answer choices are, and again, I apologize, Jacob, but it's just you don't have the book yet. T over 12, then T plus 1/12, or 12t. So you can, hi, okay, so your mother's so glad you came, honey. So it's Katie, right?
Might be true.
No, this is Katie.
Okay.
So we just want to, this is a pretty easy one. We just want to find C minus B on page 17. So we just subtract the B and voila. Did everybody get 12t? with that one? So just give me a thumbs up because I can't see you if you got it. Jacob's good, good. Sailor, you got it, honey? And Julie, we're good? Okay. So now I want to try a little bit of a harder one. So I want to go to 480, number 15, and I'll write it out again for you, Jacob. But we covered the hard one already. So on 480, one second here. I'm probably the slowest one here finding it. I'm Mrs. Hessler, by the way. Katie's to meet you. Okay, so we're going to try number 15. So here's how the question presents itself. It's P equals N 19 minus C. Like I said, there's always one of these on every test. And so we have to find which answer, which equation gives C, and then it always writes it this way. That's how you know, in terms of P and N. So you just cross off this, and here are your choices. So we have A, which is 19 plus P over N. What's the next one? 19 minus P over N. C.
Get you a little space.
Yeah. C, thank you.
Hmm?
C equals 19 plus P over N. And then the last answer, D, is C equals 19 minus P over N. Okay, so our goal is to get the C to stand alone, right? And lots of you are already trying it. So let's take this equation. First thing we're going to do, I'm going to go to a different color. First thing we're going to do is divide everything by N. So that's going to give me P over N equals 19 minus C. Good first step? Yeah. Okay, now remember we're trying to get the C to stand alone. So what I can do next is I could add C to both sides. So now I have C plus P over N equals 19. Almost home. All I need to do is get the C alone, so I'll subtract the P over N. So C will equal 19 minus P over N, which is answer choice D. Everybody get that one? Julie, you're okay? Sailor, thumbs up? Alyssa, good, good, wonderful. That is like a middle difficulty, but we did a harder one. Now let's go on to the next. We're going back to the packet. And this first part is just like, we're like a drone going through the SAT, sort of showing you what the whole test looks like, okay? So this one, number 3, and it's probably, we usually see the math go up about 100 points and the reading go average, and the reading goes up about 60. So if you don't understand it, I'm right around my dining room table. So just raise your hand and you can ask a question. So let's look at this tricky one. In the system of equations above, what value of C would result in infinitely many solutions? Well, we're going to go through this next week. If it's infinitely many solutions, Do you see it's the same line? Does that make sense? So if they say infinitely many solutions, it's the same line. So this is our equation. This is the same equation, but it's traveling incognito with sunglasses on. Does that make sense? So what did I do? I multiplied everything by a 3 here, right? By 3, by 3. So to keep it the same equation, I would multiply 48 times 3, and I would get 144. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. And so we can't really find out A and B, and you might not have seen that kind of a question in your math class, but do you see now how it's pretty easy to solve? If it's the same line, it's infinite solutions. So once again, thumbs up so I can just know everybody's got it. Good, good. Julia's got it and Jacob, good. Okay, now we have a graph. Like I said, this is not to intimidate you. This is just like we're a drone going over the test, trying to get you used to everything. So what's tricky about graphs sometimes is that you have to be careful how you read. The circle graph above shows the proportion of pets per household surveyed. There's 800 households. How many households had 2 or fewer pets? So a lot of students would just pick the 2. So the 2 pets, you see that's the vertical lines, that would be 0.16 because I just dropped the percent and move it 2 over. But it's not just 2, it's 2 or fewer pets. So I have to work on the 1 pet, which is the polka dot, so that's 0.43. And I also have to work on the 0 pets, which is the horizontal lines, which is 0.18. So I add these all up and I get 0.77. And then voila, I take 0.77 times I have 800 households. And I will get answer choice C. Okay, thumbs up, everybody good? Good. I could do bobbing heads too, but I think the thumbs up is easier. Okay, now we're on the next page. And I'm glad, Jacob, you're able to print these out. Like I said, we're just like a drone flying over this. And we'll take a break eventually. Okay, let's try this graph. Each point in the scatter plot above represents a different person's systolic and diastolic blood pressures. What fraction of the 16 people tested had a systolic pressure over 140? So I'm going to try to draw that line. And a diastolic pressure over 90. Whoops, it's so hard. Oh, by the time your children are taking this, it'll be very improved. So we have to see how many are in that group. There's 1. We just count this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Okay, so there's 6 that meet their requirement. They could have or both. So we take 6 over 16, and I start to freak out because the answer isn't there. But you probably never heard of this expression, but you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? All I have to do is reduce the fraction. See what I'm saying? So sometimes you will get an answer, and don't freak out, you just reduce it. So that'll be 3/8. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points, right? So we're good? Everybody got that one? Okay. Thumbs up. Sailor, you're good, honey? Good. Okay, let's go to this one. 10 years ago, there weren't any functions on the test, but now we have a whole lesson on functions. I just want to, there's a rationale for everything we do here. So a function is defined by the equation f of x is this expression. For what value of x does f of x equal 10? So here's the question. Do I put 10 in for f of x, or do I put 10 in for x? I should put 10 in for f of x, right? So I'll put 10 in for that. 10 equals 3/5 x minus 5. Now all I have to do is solve that equation. So the first step is to add 5 to both sides. That'll give me 15 equals 3/5 x. Then I just multiply by the reciprocal. And so on this planet, 5 times 5 is 25. So thumbs up if you got it. Anybody have a question? We're going to get to some harder ones. These are only module ones. Now this next one is a little tricky. So right before our last class, we're going to cover statistics. And you might say, do I need a whole class in statistics for the SAT? And no. But one thing you've been drilled into your whole life is mean, median, and mode, right? So the median is the middle number, like the median of the highway is the yellow line, right? So if I have an odd number, the median is going to be right in the middle. And when you were in middle school, I know it because I taught middle school, you would write out every single number, because if you don't keep the kids busy, they keep you busy in middle school. That's what I learned. So anyway, let's see if you see this strategy, because they could give you a lot of numbers. So what I have is I have 5 30s. And like I said, in middle school, you would write them all out. And you could still do that, but it would be time consuming, right? Then I have 6 31s. I have 5 32s. I have 8 33s. I have 6 34s. And I have 1 36. Okay, now here's the strategy. And I'll explain it twice because it's a little hard to see. Okay, so I'm trying to find the middle number, right? So do you see if I went this way, I'd have 5 plus 6 is 11 plus 5. And so that's 16 to get right here. If I went the other way, I would have 1 plus 6, which is 7 plus 8, which is 15. So I have 15 this way, 16 this way, and so the middle number has to be a 32. Do you see how that cuts out a lot of work? Now, it's hard to see though, so I'll go through it one more time. And be honest with me, because in math, everybody has a different epiphany, right? You might see something before somebody else does. So I went to a teaching seminar and they say your frontal lobes grow until the age 25. So your neurons are still firing. It's too late for me in gym, okay? So anyway, do you see how I did this? I just, instead of writing out all those numbers, because we've seen ones where they have a lot of numbers, you just went this way. There were 16 this way, and there were 15 this way. So we landed on a 32. It makes sense? Great. Okay, now we're getting into a little harder questions. Okay, another thing that might be on the test is composite functions. Have you seen these before? Something like this, and it works inside out. So we put 4 into the g function, and that's going to give me 16. Then I'll have h of 16, which is 16 minus 4, and that will give me 12, right? Good. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. I was going to put that on my tombstone. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points, but my husband already just put on it, trust the Lord. So I can't just pick a number or thank you, College Board, for 10 points. This one is easy. But it's usually on the harder part of the test. If the function, but you can do it in 5 seconds. So that's, the math goes from easy to hard, like Jim said. So the first few questions, there'll be no trap. But the last questions, you'll hear the Jaws music, right? Because this is where they're going to put their traps. This one, they count pretty hard, but it's real easy. If the function f has 5 distinct, and that means different zeros, which of the following could represent the complete graph of f? Well, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's our answer. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points, right? This one only has 1, 2, 3 zeros. This one only has 2. And this one is eliminated 1, 2, 3, 4. So everybody sees it's A. That would be an easy 10 points. We want one of those questions. Okay, now, they used to give you the density formula on the test, but now they don't. So you're going to hear a bunch of real silly Mrs. Hessler maxims on this in this course. One of them is, I love density because it's mass over volume. Have you ever heard of that before? Okay, so Alyssa has, Sailor has. So they won't give you, okay, so Jacob hasn't, but see, look, it's Valentine's Day's coming. So I love density because it's mass over volume, right? So let's try this one. So we know density is mass over volume. So the density of this brass is 8.4 grams per cubic centimeter. The sample is in the shape of a cube. So they're making us figure out the volume. Do you see that? So
Oh, the mass. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Calculate the volume.
Yeah, they're making us calculate the volume of the crazy cube. So it's a 4 by 4 by 4, and that's 64. So that's going to be 64. Our job is to get the mass. So this is like a middle question, okay? But if you just remember density is mass over volume, you're home free.
I can't believe they don't give you that formula on the formula page.
Yeah, so all we have to do now is multiply 64 times 8.4, and we will get 537.6. Okay, so that's okay. I haven't lost anybody. Nobody's fallen off the merry-go-round yet. You're good, Julie? Good, Sailor? Okay. Okay, let's go to this one. Now, this brings up trig. Now, the good news is you don't have to know a lot of trig identities. No logarithms on the test either. I'd love to tell you what you don't have to know. The ACT test, which you may have heard of that, the grammar is the same. I think they've segued to a digital, but we're not sure. But we just get you ready for the SAT. So how many of you have heard of SOHCAHTOA? Okay, good. So you're going to need to know that for this test. This is a harder question, though. So we have 2 lessons that cover all the geometry. So here, we know the tangent of B is 3 over 4. So the tangent, we take this part out. So the tangent is opposite over adjacent. So on a question like this, you might not know where our job is to get to EC. But we just have to go one domino at a time and see what we're going to find. So we know the tangent is 3 over 4, which is going to equal the tangent of B, which will be 6. And we'll just call this X. Okay? Is that so far so good? So then we just cross multiply. 3x is 24, so x is 8. So we've got that. It's actually a 6, 8, 10. We're going to go through a whole lesson on triangles, not to worry. Okay, so these are similar triangles, like this ADE is similar to BAC by triangle, angle, angle. So how did I go from 6 to 18? I multiplied by what? By 3, right? So now I'm going to multiply 8 by 3, and this whole base will be 24. And that's why I said the geometry, the harder ones, are like detective problems. And so then 24 minus 8, and our answer is going to be 16. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. Who sees it right away? Just give me a thumbs up. I'm going to go through it again. Julie, I'm going to go through it again,
They're
okay?
getting a little harder though, right? In this
Yeah,
second module.
this is the second module, so they're getting harder. So let me go through it again, just in case I mean, I wish you would just say, I don't get it, Mrs. Hessler. I didn't have my epiphany yet, okay? All right, so we know that tangent is opposite over adjacent. So we're working with B, angle B. So the opposite of B is 6. And we don't know, at first, we don't know what this is. So 3 over 4, because they give us this, is 6 over, we don't know. We cross multiply, we get x is 8. Now we have to go to the bigger triangle, which is the same, similar triangles,
So it's the same shape,
same shape,
same angles.
same angles, but the sides are different. They're in ratio. So we have 6 is to 18. We had to multiply by 3. So we're trying to get this long one. This is for engineers, I guess. That would be 8 is we don't know. And so we can see that we would multiply by 3, and this whole long thing would be 24. Then we could get EC by 24 minus 8, which is 16. So just give me a thumbs up if you see it. So Sailor sees it. Alyssa, Jake, you're good? Okay. Julie, you're good? Okay. Now this one is really hard. Okay. Now, could you put this in Desmos? Possibly. If you don't get this tonight, it's okay, because we're going to be going through a whole lesson on circles. How many have ever seen this formula? X minus h squared, because there's one of these on every test.
And what's HK and what's R?
Oh, yeah. So HK is the center and R is the radius. I never saw
That's
this.
the circle formula, right?
Yeah, circle on a coordinate plane. I never saw this in high school. Did anybody see this before? Okay, so Alyssa has. Good for you. But
They don't give you this on the formula.
they don't give you this on the formula page, but we're gonna have a whole lesson. So if we don't solve this tonight, no big deal. So what we have to do is complete the square. You
So
could,
they didn't give it to her in that nice standard form. So
Right.
she has to put it in that form.
so I have to find out. I'm going to divide this by 2 because I'm completing the square. That, if you don't get this tonight, it's all right. We have x minus 3 squared, because that will give me out x squared minus 6x,
That you wanted,
plus 9.
that we have to account for.
But I added 9 to this side, so I have to add 9 to this side. Then I'm going to divide this by 2 and complete that square. So that'll be y minus 4 times y minus 4. Sorry, it's messy. That'll be y squared minus 8y plus
That we
6,
wanted. Yeah, plus the addition.
because I wanted the negative 8y. And so don't get frustrated if you've never seen this before because, so I had to add a 16 here.
So she has to add it to the other side because it was never there on the left before she factored it.
So 39 plus 25 is 64. So if r squared is 64, the radius would be 8.
Could you write out the whole equation maybe down here for that circle just so they could see what you did
Yeah.
at the end?
So I will have x minus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals r squared,
Which is 64.
which is
yeah.
64.
Right.
And so the square root of 64 is 8.
And we're going to do a ton of these.
We're going to do a ton of these, so please don't worry about it, okay? Because there's one on every test. You'll be so good at this, you won't believe it. Okay, so let's look at number 6. We're almost done with me for a little bit here. Now, one thing they put on the test, it's pretty easily actually, that there's a theorem and there's no proofs on the test. Isn't that good? No proofs. That's not proofs. No logarithms. No i's. So that's wonderful.
No e's.
No e's. So an inscribed angle of a triangle is equal to 1/2 of the intercepted arc. Okay, so if they tell us y is 58, this arc has got to be 116, and so the central angle has to be 116.
So you just type in 116.
So your answer is 116. I'm sorry. Is that good for everybody? Sailor, you good? Jake, good. Okay. Now this one,
Hardest one.
hardest one.
And if this doesn't make sense tonight, don't worry about it. But
They took some stuff off the test. Like they took off I, which was a blessing, but they put on grouping problems with algebra.
so factoring by grouping method.
Yeah, factoring by grouping. And so,
And this is like a pretty hard grouping
yeah,
one.
this is a really hard one, but there is one of these on test 4 at the end of module 2. So this is getting into Harvard problem. So I'll try to go really slowly. So here's our question. We have 39xx, I don't want to lose anybody off the merry-go-round, plus x, I'm putting the x out front, 39b plus a, plus ab is 0. Okay, that's so far. So all I'm going to do is distribute the x. So that will give me 39xx plus 39bx plus ax plus ab is 0. Everybody still on the merry-go-round? Okay, so I'm going to group it right here. So what I can take out, you see, I can take out a 39 and an x and a 39 and an x, and that will give me 39x plus b.
Oh, you took out an x.
Yeah, I did, and I didn't write it. I'm sorry, I said it, but I didn't write it. Thank you. Okay, so 39x, and then there's an x plus b left. Is that okay? Everybody see it, sort of? Okay, then I'm going to factor out an a. So when I factor out an a, I'm going to get x plus b.
So she was trying to make x plus b twice because now she can do the grouping part.
Now you see each of these have an x plus b.
So now she could factor that out of everything.
I know. This is like I said,
That's a hard one. Well, this would be like the end of the module.
this is the very end of the module. Yeah.
Very few people will get this right.
Very like 1%. Okay, so we now have left a 39x plus an a. So I can factor out 39x plus a and x. Whoops. Let me write this a little better. Again, it's just this glass screen is really hard to it's hard to write. So I have 39x plus a times x plus b is 0. Everybody still with me?
So now that she's factored it, she could solve each one of these for x.
So now I'm going to solve for x. So I have 39x plus a equals 0. So 39x equals a negative a over 39. I'm sorry, I'm going into the writing one.
Wait, so you divided by 39 then?
Yeah, I
So-
divided both sides. So I have
Okay, so one solution.
one solution is negative a over 39.
Okay.
Then the other solution is pretty easy. I just subtract the b and x is a negative b.
So they say KAB, where K is a constant, is when you multiply both solutions.
So,
So she could set KAB equal to multiplying both of those solutions.
right. So see what
somewhere. We're giving
on this
some
crazy, I know, but I'm
you gotta
trying,
like zoom in here.
no, it makes it messier.
Well, okay. Where do you want to write it? Down here?
I don't know. I'll think I'll,
Yeah, maybe erase that and write it. Or that's KAB is gonna equal negative B times negative A over
so
39.
KAB is going to equal
Yeah,
K times negative A over 39
times
times
the negative B.
times the negative B. So, I mean, this
So
is,
K's cancel.
yeah, the
Yeah.
K's cancel. Well, I'm solving for K.
Right. Oh yeah, sorry.
So what I'm going to get is negative times a negative is a positive. I'm going to divide both by AB. Ah,
So you still have 139th there, right?
yeah.
It's positive now.
So now I have K equals 1 over 39.
Right. Well, here you had 1 over 39 times that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
And then
my,
the AB's canceled. And that's like a real hard problem.
Yes.
But it did get her to the answer. You
And I-
see it, it's there.
and so I won't get Alzheimer's doing this. Okay, everybody? Okay,
And
now,
if that doesn't make sense tonight, that's fine. We're sorry. They put it on their evil test, so we have
yeah, I
to
like
do
Jacob.
it.
If you're sort of good with it,
Yeah. We're gonna
That's
do
good.
it. We're gonna do those.
tell me you're sort of good with it. Just do this.
Sort of.
We're doing fish. Okay. All right. Now Jim's going to do the verbal part, and then you're going to get a break. That's as hard as it gets.
Okay. So we're gonna switch gears to some English. We're gonna do the same thing we just did with the math. We're gonna look at the module 1 English, which should be relatively easy. Then we'll look at what a hard module 2 would look like. The questions get a little bit trickier. But we're just gonna basically, today's just an overview. We're just gonna see all the different types of English questions that they'll give you.
With some strategies.
Yeah, and some strategies here. I'm just gonna erase some of this math that made its way under this question. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So we'll start with the fill in the blank type question. And if anyone has any questions at all, just say something. But I'm just gonna give you a strategy for this type of question. This is a very common question in the English. So it's just a fill in the blank type of question. So the strategy will be to read the answer choices back into that blank. Only one of them will make sense. 3 of the answer choices will just make gibberish, like nonsensical sentences. So I'm going to try that strategy. Here is the passage. Non-native organisms, plants, animals, or microorganisms can be introduced into long-established ecosystems to detrimental effect. Human-facilitated introduction of blank species has greatly increased the rate and extent of this phenomenon. So I'm just going to read unidentified in there. Let's see if it makes any sense. Human-facilitated introduction of unidentified species has greatly increased the rate and extent of this phenomenon. That doesn't make much sense. I'm going to cross it off for now. Let's try decisive. Human-facilitated introduction of decisive species. That makes no sense. Let's try C. Human-facilitated introduction of native species has greatly increased the rate and extent of this phenomenon. So that's the antonym of the word we're actually looking for. They like to throw in the antonym. Let's see if invasive makes sense. Human-facilitated introduction of invasive species has greatly increased the rate and extent of this phenomenon. Boom, right answer. It's D. Invasive does mean non-native.
See if they got it.
Yeah, so they start us off relatively easy, but that's like kind of an easy one. Just fill in the blank. I like to just read each word into the sentence. It takes hardly any time at all, but you can hear the ones that are strange, like decisive is very weird. But then once the one you hear like that's perfect, it's just pretty easy. So they'll ramp up as we go through the test. So number two, it says the following text is from Louisa May Alcott's 1868 novel Little Women, a story of four sisters who grow up during the Civil War. It doesn't matter if we've read Little Women, they don't expect us to have read Little Women. We only need this much of it. We just need four quotations from Little Women. So the question goes on to say Jo March, the protagonist, that's the main character, is outspoken in her desire for a more substantial and equal place in society for women. Then it has a colon and a blank. So they're asking us which quotation from Little Women most effectively illustrates the claim and belongs in this blank. We're just looking for the one that argues for a more substantial and equal place in society for women. I'll let you, yeah, you guys try this one. I'll just be here. Just read the quotes and see if you can figure out which one it is. A relatively easy one, but they'll get harder. Okay, so it looks like you guys have finished. So the only one that's about women is answer choice C. I'm going to read that one. And it's worse than ever now, for I'm dying to go and fight with Papa, and I can only stay home and knit like a poky old woman.
How many of them had C?
You guys all get C for that one? Yeah, so they're getting a little, maybe that one's harder than the first one. I'm not even sure. They're still pretty easy, but I think when we get to module two, they'll get a little harder. So here's number three in module one. So poetry is fair game on the SAT now. It didn't used to be on the test, but they can give you a short poem. This one's only two stanzas, so this is a good one for the SAT. They're not very long. They're not going to give you the Iliad or some kind of crazy long poem. So this is from Emily Dickinson's poem "I'm Nobody, Who Are You," published after her death in 1891. And always read the prompt first. This pretty much goes for any English question.
Saves time.
Saves time, and then as I'm reading the poem, I know what I'm looking for. So the prompt says, "What purpose does the frog serve in the second?" Ooh, didn't mean to cross it off, I meant to underline it. What purpose does the frog serve in the second stanza? So now I'll read the poem, and we just have to figure out why the frog is there. Here's the poem. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'd banish us, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog, to tell your name the livelong day to an admiring blog. All right, so that's the poem. And now we just have to figure out what purpose the frog serves in the poem. So I'm going to read the first answer choice. Let's see if it's A. A says the speaker wants to champion her name, sharing it with the world. That's not what I got from the poem. I'm going to cross off A for now. Let's try B. The speaker wants to convey that living hidden is better than living in the open. And I think that's exactly the point of the frog in this poem. C says the speaker believes by sharing her name, others will be encouraged to share theirs too. I didn't get that from the poem. And D says the speaker indicates the frog is a public creature that prompts other frogs to use their own voices. And if you're getting that from the poem, you're reading in things into the poem that weren't there. So B's sort of the answer to this one. So you might see a short poem or an excerpt from a poem, but they're not too bad. They'll be kind of this level. They don't expect you to have read the poem, but it's going to be short. They can't give you a huge poem. All right, here's number 4. It's another fill in the blank question, and they just wanted to fill this blank in. I am going to read the answer choices back into the question. I also want to give you another strategy because we like to give you as many strategies as we can on this test. That's a G. Sorry, it's hard to write on this tablet. So the first strategy is read all the answer choices back into the blank. I want to give you another strategy for this type of question, and this strategy is to consider the charge of the answer choice. These answer choices have charges. I see a negative word. I see a positive word. I don't know. We'll see. Some words are more neutral. I'm gonna try to I'm just going to read this passage. Anyway, here we go. The invention of emoji, symbols used to replace language, occurred in Japan in the late 90s. They have enriched the way we communicate globally. Emoji allow us to express a wide range of emotions, joy, sadness, anger, and many others. Emoji blank cultural and linguistic barriers and have become an integral part of our digital and social interactions. I'm going to try a negative word like restrict. Let's see if restrict makes any sense in this sentence. I'm going to read it in the sentence. Emoji restrict cultural and linguistic barriers and have become an integral part of our digital and social interactions. That doesn't make much sense. Let's try transcend. Let's try a positive word. Emoji transcend cultural and linguistic barriers and have become an integral part of our digital and social interactions. So that makes perfect sense. Define doesn't make much sense, and permit doesn't make sense. Permitting barriers, again, we're looking for the positive, the transcending of the barriers. So that's sort of like a medium level difficulty one. You can read the words in the sentence, but it's also useful to consider the charges sometimes. And again, some words are inherently pretty neutral, but sometimes you get some positive or negative words. All right, here is a grammar question. I know immediately it's a grammar question because they always ask you to complete the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English. So you will see that phrase all over the SAT. You just immediately know, they just want to know which one is grammatically correct. It looks like here they're just testing us on punctuation. So I just have this same non-essential clause punctuated in different ways here. I'm going to read the passage and then we're just going to lock in on an answer that makes the most sense here. And it's just grammar. Here we go. Anthropologist Logan Kistler and evolutionary molecular biologist Audrey Lynn analyzed the genetic information in a fur sample from the only known woolly dog fleece in existence. The study's analysis, published in the journal Science, includes accounts from Coast Salish elders, knowledge keepers, and master weavers. Okay, so here we have a non-essential clause, and there are 3 ways you can offset a non-essential clause in English. So three different types of punctuation here. We could use parentheses. I don't see any parentheses in the answer choices, but it is a way that we could. You could use commas. Another way we could offset a non-essential clause. And then the final way we could do it would be with an M dash. Open it with an M dash, close it with an M dash. So the only one that we have here, we have to be consistent about it. So if you open it with a parenthesis, you must close it with a parenthesis. And the only consistent answer here would actually be the commas. So if we open it with a comma, we must close it with a comma, which was answer choice B. So answer choice A has a colon and then closes it with a comma. We can't do that. Answer choice C mixes them up. So we would open it with a comma but close it with an M dash. You can't do that. And then D has a semicolon. We're going to go over the rules for semicolons in another lesson. But you can't mix a semicolon with a comma and offset your non-essential clause in that way. So the only way we could do it here would be with commas in this example. And, on your test, maybe you take a test on Saturday, just be aware that you could do it with parentheses or em dashes. You just have to be consistent about how you do it throughout the whole sentence. So that's a typical grammar question. That was a punctuation question. Not too bad, though. Maybe they're getting a little bit harder. Here's another grammar question. I know immediately it's a grammar question because they always tell you or always ask you which answer choice conforms to the conventions of standard English. That just means it's a grammar question. So I'm going to read the grammar question. It looks like they're testing us on pronoun antecedent agreement because I see all these pronouns as answer choices. And it also looks like they're testing us on contractions because I see contractions as answer choices. All right, so here is the passage. In quantum computing, qubits, short for quantum bits, trap electrons and function like artificial atoms. Unlike transistors, each added qubit doubles the computer processor's power, blank exponential. Okay, so I just have to figure out which answer choice fits into the blank. And we have some contractions here. Maybe I'll write out the contractions. So answer choice D, IT apostrophe S, that means it is. Just a contraction. And answer choice C is a contraction of this, we are. Okay, so let's get rid of an answer choice. How about C? We are exponential. You and I are exponential. Doesn't make any sense, right? Not in the context of this. It sounds like a science passage. So we can't be exponential. Answer choice B is a trap. It's a trap because THEIR does not equal this. I think they're trying to make you think that this is a contraction for they are, because they are exponential would make sense here, but that's not what we have. We don't have that contraction. So I think it's down to answer choice A or D here. Um, so maybe we'll just do this one by a show of hands. Who thinks it's ITS, no apostrophe? Nobody. You guys are all right. It is D. So it is exponential. We wanted the contraction. That fits right in there. You guys didn't fall for it. So yeah, so they'll test you on grammar. They'll test you on the difference between a singular possessive pronoun, its shape or its color, compared to something like it is. It is exponential, which would fit in there. All right. On to, there's the final one from our first module. So this one is called the paired passage. So two different authors are going to be writing about the same topic. It looks like they're each going to be writing about fracking. And these are different people. Author one is different than author two. They probably disagree about the topic. They usually disagree, at least to some extent. Maybe they agree about some things, but they're different authors. So I like to always read the prompt first. That way, when I'm reading these passages, I know what I'm looking for. And the prompt says, based on the text, how would the author of text 2 most likely respond to the moratorium mentioned in text 1? So that's what I'm going to be looking for. I need to put myself in the shoes of author 2 and make a judgment claim about something mentioned from author 1. So I'm going to read author 1's passage, then I'm going to read author 2's passage, and then I'm going to try to decide how author 2 would respond to author 1. So they're getting a little harder, I think. I'm going to read the first passage. The uncovering of large concentrations of natural gas in shale formations presents a dramatic opportunity for energy utilization in the U.S. and abroad. New technologies such as hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling drastically increase the amount of natural gas that can be extracted from shale units, although fears over leaked methane gas as well as contamination from hydraulic fracturing fluid have led to a moratorium on these processes in some areas. So that was author one. Now I'm going to read what author two has to say about fracking. Here's author two. This is a different guy. Now, in my birthplace, attention has turned to the pockets of organic matter trapped in a layer of black shale known as the Marcellus Formation. I think about how the spoiling of lives happens so often in places considered second rate, like Appalachia. That our mountains are fracked is certainly related to the kind of cultural power we don't carry. We never quite catch a break in the national circulation of stereotypes. Hillbillies, we are called, misfits of the mountains. So that's author two. Definitely a difference in tone compared to the first author. And they're asking us, how would author two respond to the idea of a moratorium mentioned by author one? Well, it would help if we know what a moratorium is and they don't give you a dictionary. You can't bring one into the test. I'm just going to tell you guys, it's just a ban. A moratorium is a ban. So, what would author two say about the fact that this process, fracking, is banned in some areas? I'm going to look at the answer choices and you can just try it along with me. Let's see, we're looking for the voice of the second author. And that tone is drastically different than the first passage, I think. The second author's tone it almost seems like he's a little miffed. All right, here I'm going to give A. Public outcry will lead to greater restrictions on hydraulic fracturing. Would author two say that from his perspective? Here's B. The harmful effects of hydraulic fracturing can be mitigated, can be lessened by greater regulation. Would author two make that claim based on his perspective? How about C? Provisional bans need to remain until more is known about the effects of hydraulic fracturing. Does that sound like the correct voice of our author two? Or how about D? Bans on hydraulic fracturing occur in more affluent areas. I'm going to draw a little dollar sign here for answer choice D. So I think our author two would go with D. And where's my evidence? Here's some evidence. I think about how the spoiling of lives happens in places considered second rate, like Appalachia. That our mountains are fracked is certainly related to the kind of cultural power we don't carry, right? So we're a stereotype. We're the hillbillies. They'll frack our land, but they won't frack the affluent areas where the wealthy people live. Yeah, so that was all. They're getting harder. That one's kind of hard because you have to put yourself in the shoes of the author of text two and then make a claim about the first text. You also have to figure out what a moratorium is. But I think if you just go one step at a time, this would be at the end of the module. Even module one gets harder at near the end.
Yeah, how many of them got that?
Guys, cool with that one now? We went through it. Okay, I see a lot of nodding heads. I think a little bit trickier compared to some of those vocabulary questions or that comma question. Clearly, if we open something with a comma, we should close it with a comma. But that last one was a little trickier. So now let's pretend that we did really well on module one. Now we're going to get to English module two. So we would expect for this to be harder. We should want this to be harder, which is counterintuitive to say that you really do want a harder second module. You really, really do. It's strange. Why do I want a harder test? You need a harder test if you want to get a great score. Okay, so here we go. Here's the first question for module two. So they always tell us from where the text is derived. It says the following text is adapted from the 1860 novel The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. It doesn't matter that we've never read The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. I bet this book is 500 pages long, 400 pages long. These Victorian novels were always really long. So it doesn't matter that we haven't read this. How much of Mill on the Floss do we need? We need about a paragraph of it. And they give us it right here. So we're just going to read about a paragraph of this long book, but always read the prompt first. They ask us this: what does the text indicate about the conduct of the Dodson family? So now that I know what I'm looking for, I'm going to read this paragraph and try to think about the conduct of a Dodson. All right, here's the passage. There were particular ways of doing everything in that family, so that no daughter of that house could be indifferent to the privilege of having been born a Dodson rather than a Gibson or a Watson. Funerals were always conducted with peculiar propriety in the Dodson family. The hatbands were never of a blue shade. The gloves never split at the thumb. Everybody was a mourner who ought to be, and there were always scarfs for the bearers. When one of the family was in trouble or sickness, all the rest went to visit the unfortunate member, usually at the same time. and did not shrink from uttering the most disagreeable truths that correct family feeling dictated. If the illness or trouble was the sufferer's own fault, it was not in the practice of the Dodson family to shrink from saying so. All right, so that's a good idea of what the Dodson family is like. I'm going to go through some answer choices to see what we could say about the conduct of the Dodson family. All right, so here is answer choice A. They advocate individual expression above collective identity. I think that the Dodsons value the collective identity. I wouldn't say that I see any indication that they're individualistic. I see a collective identity. Sounds like they're pretty similar. All right, here is B. They pride themselves on acts of benevolence and mercy. Is there anything merciful or benevolent about a Dodson when they're attacking one of their own, especially if it's their own fault? I don't think so. They don't sound very nice. What about D? They demonstrate compassion when a fellow family member is in distress. No, especially not if it's the sufferer's own fault. So they're not being compassionate when they swoop in and attack their own family member. What about C? Can I find evidence about them observing matters of decorum? Sure. The hat bands were never of a blue shade. The gloves were perfect. Everybody was a mourner ought to be. So there are matters of decorum. What about a tendency toward reproach? Yeah, it's self-reproach. They reproach one another. So that one pretty clearly a C. They're going to get harder, but that's sort of what, an excerpt from a novel may look like. They always give you the prompt. I like to read the prompt first and then just figure out what you could say about a Dodson. They don't sound like nice people, really, actually. All right, on to number two. Let's see if they get any harder. Here's a fill in the blank question. All right, so we have two strategies for the fill in the blank question. Just to recap, we can always read the words back into the sentence. I think this one really lends itself to considering the charges of the word. Sometimes there are very neutral words. It can be kind of tricky, but I see three positive words and a negative word. I'm going to put little plus signs in here. Positive, 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 negative. That could be helpful. And I'm going to read those words right back in that blank. I suggest you do the same this weekend when you take a practice test. All right. Annabel Lopez Ochoa's work, Tiburones, for Ballet Hispanico, deconstructs mainstream media's penchant to discriminate and stereotype elements of Latinx culture. Ochoa utilizes her choreography to blank such insensitive portrayals as West Side Story and shape a more authentic perspective of Latinx identity. All right, so I'm just going to read the words back in the blank. Let's try a positive word like answer choice A. Ochoa utilizes her choreography to exemplify such insensitive portrayals as West Side Story. Would you want to exemplify an insensitive portrayal? I don't think so. You probably wouldn't applaud it either or promote it. You would be critical of it, especially if you consider it to be, I don't know, racist or insensitive, whatever. It's definitely, let's try criticize. Ochoa utilizes her choreography to criticize such insensitive portrayals as West Side Story and shape a more authentic perspective of Latinx identity. Okay, so they wanted a negative word there. Okay, on to number three. Oh, it's a grammar question. I know immediately it's a grammar question. I only need the one that's grammatically correct. All right. Because of the conventions of standard English. They just want the one that works. It looks like they're testing me on run-ons because I see some run-ons here. All right, so run-on sentences, we're going to go over those in a grammar lesson, but I'm going to read the prompt, or sorry, I'm going to read the passage, and then we just have to figure out which one of these is grammatically correct. Only one of them will be, and there's probably a run-on in the wrong answer. Acoma pottery was first produced in the Acoma Pueblo region of New Mexico over 1,000 years ago, featuring traditional designs such as thunderbirds and geometric patterns. The thin-walled pottery is made of fine clay. Okay, so I see some run-ons. Let's see, where are the run-ons? Here's a run-on. Answer choice C is a run-on sentence. We cannot punctuate two independent clauses as one. We can't just you just can't do it. They call that a run-on sentence. Answer choice A is also a run-on. They call that a comma splice run-on. It's hard to write on this tablet. Just bear with me. Comma splice run-on. Okay, so they like to give us both types of run-on as answer choices. You'll see this if you take a practice test on Saturday or Sunday. You will see that they always give you both kinds of run-on. A comma is not strong enough to join two independent clauses. There is a type of punctuation that can do that. It's not a comma. But anyway, so we did want to start a second sentence. That's the first thing here. We absolutely want to do. You have two independent clauses. That's one way we can correct a run-on. Let's make a new sentence. Now, the next thing is, do we need a comma after patterns or is it no comma after patterns? I will just do the same show of hands thing I did for that other question. Who says we need the comma after patterns? Everybody. Jake, you in? Yeah, we do. That we need that comma because this is a participial phrase featuring traditional designs such as thunderbirds and geometric patterns. The thin-walled pottery is made of fine clay. Okay. All right, so that's just a run-on one. Let's try number 4. Oh, it's another fill in the blank question. We have two strategies for these. We're going to read the words back in the sentence. Also, I'm going to say that obstructing something is a negative thing. Hampering something is also a negative thing. Facilitating something is positive. Curtailing something means to end it. So that's negative. All right, I'm going to read these back in the sentence, and we can also consider the charges. For centuries, books were copied by hand. The world's access to information was initially based on this time-consuming and labor-intensive process. By inventing the movable type printing press in the mid 15th century, Johannes Gutenberg initiated the mass production of pamphlets and books that helped obstruct the global dissemination of knowledge and ideas. We definitely wouldn't want to be obstructing that or hampering it or ending it forever. Let's try facilitate. Gutenberg initiated the mass production of pamphlets and books that helped facilitate the global dissemination of knowledge and ideas. All right, so that one didn't seem that bad actually. Ooh, look at number 5. Interesting. So you're trucking along in the English, and then suddenly you see something like this. And you may say to yourself, okay, I thought I was doing English. Is this a math question? What's going on here? It's not a math question. It is still reading comprehension. They just want to know, can you read a graph? So you'll see three types of infographics on the SAT. You'll see a line graph like this. You'll see bar graphs. They kind of look like that. You'll see those. And you will also just see tables of data. They might just give you numbers. So those are the three types of infographic on the SAT in the English. So it's not a math question. They just want to know, can we read this graph and read this experiment and pick something that makes sense. So whenever I get a graph, whether it's in the math or the English, I always like to read the title of the graph. Then I like to always read the x-axis, read the y-axis. I like to read the key, which they give us a key here, and then just get a general impression of what the data is doing. So the title of the graph says average errors for 21 generations of maize superior and maize inferior rats. The x-axis are selected generations of rat, and then we have y would be errors. So the higher we go would be more errors. And then the key says that the closed circle is a maize superior rat, and the open circle is a maize inferior rat. And it looks like the curve of the data is at least showing that the maize inferior rats are making more errors, and it looks like generally the maize superior rats are making fewer errors on the Y. So just the general idea of what the data is showing. Now I'm going to read the experiment, and then we just have to pick something that makes the most logical sense in the context of the experiment, using the graph, probably. They wouldn't give us a graph if we didn't need to use it. So here we go. I'm going to read the experiment. To evaluate his, and just try to solve it along with me. See if you can come up with the thing that the graph shows. Here is the experiment. To evaluate his assertion that genetic traits affect variations in ability, Robert Trion tested the proficiency of successive generations of rats in solving a maze. He initially tested a random sample of rats with the maze and labeled the rats with the fewest errors maze superior and the rats with the most errors maze inferior. Trion then mated maze superior males with maze superior females and maze inferior males with maze inferior females. Once the offspring matured, Trion tested them with the maze and labeled them based on their performance in solving the maze. He continued the matched pair mating process for 21 generations, creating two distinct breeds of maize superior and maize inferior rats. Which choice best describes data from the graph that supports Trion's assertion? So I'm just going to go through the answer choices. I'm going to try A first. Let's see if A makes sense based on the graph. You just have to look at the data. Here's A. Subsequent generations of May's inferior rats always exhibit mean errors greater than previous generations. Subsequent generations of May's superior rats always exhibit mean errors less than previous generations. All right, so the word always is important in each of these statements. So I'm just going to look back at my graph. Let's look at the May's inferior rats. Do they always exhibit mean errors greater than previous generations? If they did, that would look uh, like a graph that was increasing linear. I mean, I suppose it could also be exponential, but that's not what we have, right? It doesn't look like the word always works here. Look, it drops there, for example. I agree it's trending upwards, um, but not always. What about the Maze Superior rat? Well, the Maze Superior rat, they would all have to look like this, decreasing linear, or it could be linear exponential, but we don't have that. So answer choice A is out. All right, let's see if B makes sense. Here's B. Mean errors for Maze inferior rats exceed 13, but are less than 20. So we're looking for the open circle here. Are they greater than 13 but less than 20? Looks like we're above 13. Looks like they're less than 20. So the first statement is true. What about the next statement? Mean errors for May's superior rats are as few as 8 but never exceed 14. So now I'm looking at the closed circle. Are they as few as 8? Yep, right there. So they do go down to 8 right there. Um, but do they never exceed 14? They never exceed 14. So answer choice B is right in both of those statements are true. So the May's inferior rat is right where it belongs in that window, and the May's superior rat is right in its area, based on those the confines of what they were the statements. All right, so in the interest of time, I'm not going to go over C or D, but I think the problem with D is the word always again, but maybe they worded it um, backwards. And I think C probably mixes up the key. Like if we mixed up the Maze inferior rat with the Maze superior rat, you probably get C, but I'm not going to waste a lot of time on it because I already found the right answer. Okay, but they're getting harder, and that's you every now and then they're not all over the English, but you'll run into a graph. There'll be like three, maybe three in a module. I don't know exactly, but you'll encounter a few here and there. I think they're always science passages. I mean, for the most part. I mean, not necessarily actually. I could think of yeah, anthropology. I don't know. We just see there'll be something like this. Not no, I'm not. Today's more of an overview. We're not going to go real in depth. Okay, but this is a type of question that is on the English. The student note question. So they always look exactly like this. It'll say, while researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. Then they give you a bulleted list of five bullet points. These are the student notes. And then they always tell you what the student is trying to do. So the strategy for this type of question is to always read the prompt. Always read what the student is trying to do first. Then we can go back and read the bullets. And the student is a good student. The notes are correct. We can consider the statements to be factually true. That's what I mean to say. Each bullet came from a credible source like an encyclopedia or whatever. They're not trying to pull a fast one on us. These are all true statements. All right, so I'm going to read some bullets, but first I'm going to read what the student is trying to do, just so I know what I'm looking for. You'll never try to combine all of the bullet points into the right answer. You usually just have to pick or pick and choose a few of them. So here's what the student wants to do. The student wants to emphasize the possible application of the nanocar. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal? Okay, so I'm going to read the bullet points, and I'm just looking for an application of the nanocar. Here's the first bullet. If I don't see an application, I'm just going to keep going. The concept of the nanocar was first introduced in the early 2000s by a group of researchers at Rice University led by Professor James Torr. All right, going to keep going. A nanocar is a molecule that is smaller than the width of a human hair. I don't see an application for a nanocar yet. I'm going to keep going. The original nanocar had a chassis, wheels, and axles, but no molecular motor. I don't see an application yet. I'm going to keep going. Nanocars may one day be used to direct drugs to specific cells in the body. That absolutely is an application of a nanocar. Let's see if the last one has anything that we want. The nanocars are typically moved across a surface using a scanning tunneling microscope. Okay, so no application for a nanocar in the last bullet. So we probably need bullet point 4 for this one. Let's go through the answers and let's see which one contains the information we need. STM is a tool that allows researchers to manipulate the nanocar on a surface. So no application of a nanocar in A. B, the nanocar may be useful for delivering pharmaceuticals in the field of medicine. That was our application of the nanocar. C has no application for the nanocar, and D just describes it, no application for the nanocar. All right, so they're getting a little harder near the end, but this is a very common question type you'll see in the English. You'll get so used to these student note questions. Always read the prompts first. They always tell you what the student is trying to do. Then when you're going through the bullet points, you're just picking and choosing the information that you need, and you're never combining all the bullet points. You're always looking for something pretty specific. Okay. And I think this is our last one before we get a break. So this is probably the hardest one in here. It's another student note question. We always read the prompt first. That way we know what we're looking for. So I'm going to read what the student is trying to do, and then I'm going to read all the bullets and then see if we can find the correct answer choice that, reflects the student's goal. Here is what the student wants to do. The student wants to compare the tendency toward cooperation beyond group boundaries between different species of animals. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal? Okay, so we were looking for a tendency toward cooperation beyond group boundaries between different species of animals. So that's interesting. So I need to look for two things, essentially. I need to look for a tendency toward cooperation beyond group boundaries, but I also need the correct answer choice is going to mention different species of animals. All right, I'm going to read the bullets. We can assume that these are all well-researched and factually true statements. Evolutionary biologists studied two groups of a great ape species called bonobos in the Democratic Republic of Congo over 2 years. A co-author of the study, Liran Samuni, reported high levels of tolerance between the different bonobo groups and pro-social interaction between certain members of each group that were more likely to reciprocate. Chimpanzees and bonobos are closely related to human beings. Compared with bonobos, chimpanzees express greater hostility between unrelated individuals across different groups that can lead to instances of lethal aggression. Situations of cooperation and reciprocity between outgroup members are not uniquely human. All right, so I read all of the bullet points. So now we're just going to read the answer choices, and we're looking for both a tendency toward cooperation beyond group boundaries, as well as different species of animals. All right, here is answer choice A. Scientists observed a great ape species called bonobos in the Democratic Republic of Congo to assess levels of cooperation. So it mentions a little bit about cooperation here, but we are only talking about the bonobos here. I don't think we have different species of animals in A. I'm going to keep going. Let's look at B. Chimps and bonobos are some of our closest living relatives. Okay, so I have multiple animals here, but I don't have any mention of a tendency toward cooperation beyond group boundaries. It's just not here. I don't think it's B. I'm going to try D. Let's consider D. Chimpanzees exhibit cooperation within an individual group and may interact violently with respect to other groups. So answer choice D only has chimps. So we only have one species in D. Let's see if we get a tendency toward cooperation beyond group boundaries, as well as different species of animals in C. It better be right because we're running out of answer choices here. All right, here's C. Bonobos interact collaboratively between cliques, mirroring the pro-social behavior exhibited by humans between different groups. So now we have bonobos and humans. We are talking about the tendency toward cooperation beyond group boundaries. So that had everything we needed. Both things that the student was trying to do exist in answer choice C. And that's like what a hard one would look like. So that one would be at the end of the module. They have these varying difficulties. Some of them are easier than others, but the strategy remains the same for all of them. Just read exactly what the student is trying to do, go through the bullets one by one. We are going to take a little break now. Okay, so it's 7:34 now. Let's just take five. Take a 5-minute break. So we'll be back. I'm just going to write the time on the screen. That's an at symbol. Back at 7:39, I guess. All right, so take five, everyone. We'll be right back here for a little more math.
Did you remember to stop recording?
Hold on, I'll talk to you in a moment. Okay, you should be unmuted now.
Okay.
Maybe I'll just write down find this packet or something.
Okay. So find this packet. It's Heart of Algebra, Part 1. It should be the next one down. Hey guys, everybody's back?
Oh yeah, we also put some instructions for Blue Book in your box, so you should see that in there too,
Yeah,
and a
so
schedule.
in your box, which you're gonna get soon, Jake, there's a schedule and a directions for taking the test. So right now, this is the Heart of Algebra Part 1, and we'll be done by 8:30. And so this is for your future because usually what the admissions people do is they 2/3 they look at your grades, 1/3 of your SAT scores. But remember, many scholarships, so you can get pre-tax dollars. And I told my one son if he did that, I'd buy him a car when it was a used car after he graduated. So okay, so here we go for this part. So we're doing word problems here because sometimes those are confusing for people. So the SAT will ask you to construct an algebraic model that represents a real world scenario. So here's one. Tom is X years old. Susan's age is, that's equals 3 years less than 7 times Tom's age. So all we did was we expressed this in this form. And so the answer would be Susan is 7x minus 3. Pretty easy. Okay, let's try number 1. Whoops.
Well,
Okay. Melissa paid $80 last month to her health club, and she visited the club at least once. If she visited the club X times last month, what was her cost per visit in dollars in terms of X? So let's just pick a number again. Let's say she went to the club 10 times that month. So that means that each time she went, she would spend $8. So which answer, when I put in 10, does does it come out for $8? So it's not A, because that's $10. If she paid $800 every time she went to the fitness club, she should have her head examined, right? It's not 10 over 18 because that would be crazy. So does everybody see its answer choice D? Good. Let's try number 2. Now, next week, we're going to do a lot with lines and angles in systems, which is about 100 points on the test. So you guys all have been familiar with y equals mx plus b, which we're going to do next week. M is our rate, which is our slope, and b is our y-intercept. So here's the question. Courtney's going home from college. So she starts 580 miles from home. She assumes she can make the trip in 10 hours. And her speed is good. She's going to go home at 58 miles per hour. Which function represents how many miles Courtney is from home after she's been traveling home at 58 miles per hour? So we start at 580, and after 10 hours, we want it to be 0. So which answer do you pick an answer? So it's going to be C. How many see it? CC, right? Good. Thank you, guys. Okay, here's another one. A paper towel dispenser gives an 8-inch length of paper towel every time you hit the sensor. Which of the following functions? X gives the total number of inches of paper towels. So let's say you hit the dispenser twice. You should get 16 inches of paper towel. Pretty easy. That answer would be B. Good? Okay. Okay, we'll try these. This is a harder one because we want to sometimes go to the deep end of the pool. So the sum of x and 4 is less than the square of the difference between x and 4, but greater than the square of 1/2 x. So all these words would translate into this. Now, here's my question. Do I have to square the 1/2 since it's inside the parentheses? The answer would be yes, right? So I would then get 1/4 x squared, which is less than x plus 4, which is less than x minus 4 squared, and it's beginning to look like answer choice A. That's a little harder, I admit. So even if you're like this, I like that one Jake used earlier.
I bet a lot of people wouldn't square that half.
Yeah, a lot of people would forget to square the half and they would pick C or D. So we're going to do one more here. So you've had direct variation your whole school life, right? As x goes up, y goes up. And so the equation is y is kx. So the time t required to pick apples varies directly to the number of bushels of apples to be picked. So we know it's going to be time, for sure it's going to be the more bushels, the more time.
And they're constant, right?
Yeah. So we know it's going to be T equals KB. But the more people we have, it's going to be an inverse relationship, right? Which is Y is K over X. Because the more people you have, it's going to go down. And so our answer for this one is going to be C.
That's an adage. They say many hands make light work, right?
Yeah, many hands make light work. So good to have all
That's
these
over.
colors.
That KB is over.
P.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
I
know you picked the right one. I just wanted to.
yeah. Okay, so the next page, let's look at this one. And we'll have you out by 8:30 choosing numbers. Well, in some case, the proper equation is easily distinguishable. In harder equations, it can be more complicated. And this is our pick the number strategy. So here's our little problem. Angela has X photos. Now you don't have to draw the picture. So I just picked 10 photos and there are Z photos or photographs left. So we can fill 3 pages full, right? So our pages
So you just pick numbers that would work.
is
Right?
going to be 3, yeah. So we want to know which answer here kicks out the 3. So A would be 11 over 3, which doesn't work. B would be 13 over 1, which doesn't work. C would be 10 minus 3 over Z, which would be, that doesn't work. But look at D. So if we say 10 minus 1 over 3, 9 over 3, and we get 3 pages. Does that make sense? So you can pick, I mean, if it gets really abstract, this is another tool for you to have. Okay, so let's go to the next one. And like I said, we're in the home stretch. We'll be out of here by 8:30.
It's not cheating to pick numbers.
Right.
It's very helpful.
Okay. So the rate for a telephone call between city A and B is 50 cents for the first minute and 20 cents for each additional minute or portion thereof. Which of the following functions describes the cost in dollars of a phone call between the two cities for n minutes if n is a positive integer? So let's all say n is 4. Okay? So I want you to figure out how much the call will be and then figure out the answer you would pick. Okay? So as you try this, just try locking in an answer. The answer is C. How many had C? Did anybody get C? Okay, because you have to take off the first minute, right? So if we put 4 in, this would be a $3.20 call. This would be $1.30. That's not going to work. But this one, if I put 3 times 2 is 60 cents, this will equal $1.10. That's a period. Does that make sense now? So you can, if it gets too crazy, you can pick a number and that'll give you a strategy. So let's try this one. For every $10 Nakia earns, she gives $4 to her sister Jasmine, who helps her. Which of the following gives the relationship between D, the dollars Nakia earns, and J, the dollars she gives to Jasmine? So we're going to call our D 10, and obviously J is 4. So let's try A. Does
You can
10,
pick any multiple of 10, right?
Right.
But this will work, right?
10, yes. 10 is 16 over 10, not on this planet, right? Let's try B. Is 10 equal to 10 times 4 over 4? Yes. And so our answer would be B. One more. Okay. The price of 10 pounds of apples is D dollars. Let's call it $1 a pound.
So D is 10 then?
Yeah. If 6 of the apples weigh an average of 1 pound, which is the average price in cents of a dozen apples? A little confusing. So if we know 6 is 1 pound, that means it's going to be $10. So we want a dozen apples, which is going to be 2 pounds, which will be,
$2, but they want the answer in cents.
yeah, $2, but they want the answer in cents. So that would be 20 times D.
200 cents. Yeah.
Yeah, 200 cents. Sort of okay. Little tricky. Okay, we're going to skip the next page in the interest of time. And we're going to go on to constructing mathematical models with systems of equations. Because we want to get you out of here by 8:30. Okay, a coffee blend contains Sumatra beans, which are $6 a pound, and Kona beans, which are $14 a pound. If the blend costs $12 per pound, which of the following systems of equations could be used to determine how many of each type of coffee is in 60 pounds of the blend? So first we have our pounds. So we know the Suma plus the Kona beans. We know that's going to be 60. And then we need our money equation. So we don't have to solve it, but what we would rather, what you should probably do is don't go reading all these because you'll get confused. Just attack it by being proactive and write out your equations. So now we need a money equation, which will be, we know we have 6S plus $14 a pound for the Kona beans, and 12 times 60 is 720. Now, since I've been proactive, I can see that my answer has to be C. Where if you start going in here, you could get confused. So preempt a question like this by writing out the 2 equations you need. I'll have you try one in a second. So I'll do this one. So the width of a rectangle is 5 feet less than the length. Which of the following systems of equations can be used to define the dimension of the rectangle if the perimeter is 48 feet? So the perimeter is 2L plus 2W. These are areas, so we can get those out of there. So we know the perimeter is going to be 48, and we have to manipulate this equation a little bit by adding 5 to each side. And so we would have W plus 5 equals L. And so that looks like answer choice A. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. So now I'm going to have you try this one. Oh. Okay, so you're first going to write out the cars are X and the trucks are Y.
So a number of vehicles equation
So we need the number of the
and
vehicles.
then a money
And
equation.
so we need the vehicles and then our money equation. And so this might confuse you, so you're just going to write out the cars and the trucks are 345. And then our money equation will be $8 for a car, $12 for a truck.
1250.
1250. Oh, sorry, yeah, 1258.
That's all right.
Sorry, 1250 for a truck, and our total money is 304.
That's 1250 Y, right?
Yeah, sorry. 3048. And so that looks a lot like answer choice B. Does that make sense? You're good, sailor? Oh, good. Okay, now we don't do a lot of basic fluff in this class algebraically. So you add like terms. Obviously, you could subtract like terms. And we can do the distributive property. And that works that way. And factoring is what you take out and you put it back in front. So what I'd like you to do is take the next 5 minutes or so and just try to simplify these guys. We're just testing your basic algebra skills. So hard to write on this.
You're gonna zoom in a little bit. Think that'll help.
Yeah, that helps. No, this class is so hard. It's a 3.
think you flipped the signs on that one.
Oh, yeah, I did. Thanks. Thanks, Jim.
Mhm.
Okay, so check your own work. This is just to be sure your algebra is strong. So the first one should be 3x minus a y. Everybody get that? The next one is just 5n because the m squares cancel, the m's cancel, and you're left with just 5n. Sally, you okay, honey? The next one is 4xy minus 3x. So this one, and the terms can be in any order. So you're going to have negative 3xy plus 2y minus 10x. The next one will be negative 7b once you distribute everything. So check your own work. And then the last one will be negative 31y plus 23x, or you could switch it. So we're all good with those? Okay, great. I'm going to erase these so we look at the factoring real quick. So we only have 28 more minutes of this torture. Hopefully it's fun. Ugh. My one son, uh, he didn't have a very good math score to start. And so I said, this is very good, Andy. And he says, what do you want, a good son or a good SAT score? And so and then he got into it and he said, these problems are starting to become fun. And now he's a chemist and he works for Gilead out in California. So anyway, we could factor out of this, I'll get a different color. Okay, we could factor out a 2. That's the only thing that we have in everything. So we factor out the 2, and that gives us
That
two,
last one's 2 times 2, right? Or no, 2. Sorry, I misspoke.
Okay.
You were right.
2x squared plus 3x plus 4. Good? Just factoring. And then the next one, we have 3 times 5xy plus 2 times 3xxy plus 3x. So what we can factor out here is a 3 and a 5. No,
Not the 5.
not the 5, sorry, misspoke. 5 doesn't get factored. It's just in there still. Sorry. We can factor out an x. So we will have 3x times the quantity 5y. Take out the 3x here, we'll get 2xy plus 1 to hold the place. So that's good. So that's about the algebra you need for the test. Okay, now a linear equation in one variable. Let's just go down and try number 1. Oh, whoops. So one thing to remember is the prompt is not always just going to ask you for X or Y. So remember, Jim was saying in the reading to circle the prompt. I would get in the habit of circling the prompt because you're not trying to find X here. You're trying to get 6x minus 4. So if we subtract 3 from both sides, we'll get 6x equals 3.
That was 4 from both sides, right?
4 from both sides.
Yeah.
What did I say?
You said 3, but I know what you meant.
So we divide by 6. So x is 1/2, but we're not trying to get x. So we put it back in here, 6 times 1/2 minus 4. And 3 minus 4 on this planet is a -1. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. Okay, the next page, and there's a reason we create every one of these problems. So if we have 7 over x plus 3 is 8. So what we can do is subtract the 3 from both sides. 7 over x equals 5. So then we can cross multiply 5x equals 7. So x is going to equal 7/5. Okay, then the next one. So we translate this. The sum of n and 7 is equal to 2. We're trying to get n minus 4. So we're going to subtract the 7 from both sides. N is a -5, and a lot of students might pick -5. But that's why we want to sort of train you to circle the prompt. You want -5 minus 4, which would equal a -9. We never figured out how many math problems we do in this course, but it's a lot. Anyway, it's just making you stronger. You don't go to the Super Bowl unless you've had a lot of practice. Okay, let's try number 4. So we have to distribute this 3. So we're going to have 12 minus 3x plus 6 equals x plus 8. We'll add 3x to both sides. That will give us 18 equals 4x plus 8. Subtract the 8. That'll give us 10 equals 4x. Divide both sides by 4. And then I don't panic if 10/4 isn't there because they reduce the fraction to 5/2. Good? You guys are awesome. I have a great feeling about this class already. Okay, this one isn't too bad. 3 more than y is 2 less than 8 is 6. It's not 2 less 8, it's 2 less than 8. So we just subtract the 3, and y is 3. Okay, now another strategy that we haven't talked about much is to use the answer choices. So can you see if you're flying like an eagle above this problem, which answer choice would fit in perfectly? If you analyze it like you're flying above the problem, do you see?
Oh, and any number over itself is 1, right?
Yeah. So you see how you could put a 5 in here and they would match? You could cross multiply it, but
Might
that
take some time.
might take some time. So another strategy is to put the answer choices right back in. Okay. Now this is the hardest one algebraically on the test. So if you can do this one, you're good to go. So we'll try it together. So here I'm going to distribute the 6. So we'll have 6x plus 12 minus 9 over 4. Sorry, this glass is hard to write on. Is 15 minus 4. But then I have to distribute the minus, so that'll be a plus x over 6.
Could you make that plus sign a little clearer with next to the X?
Yes,
Yeah, just so, yeah, there you go.
it's hard to write on this glass, just trust me.
So you can cross multiply against it?
Well, let's first simplify it. So we have 6x plus 3 over 4 equals 11 plus x over 6. This is all for your future, guys. Okay, and then we cross multiply. We will get 36x plus 18 equals 44 plus 4x. Oh, sorry. It's hard to write on this. I wish 44 plus 4x. Subtract the 4x. So we get 32x equals,
44 minus 18.
which is 26. Divide both sides by 32. Do I panic if it's not there? No, I have to reduce the fraction. And I will get 13 over 16. So let's take a breath. See if you followed that. That's about as hard as it gets.
It's just a lot of steps.
Lot of
It'd be easy
steps.
to flip a sign or something.
So Julie, you're good with that? Sailor, Jacob, and Alyssa? I mean, Katie. It was your mom was on before. Okay, what if you have this kinds of a problem? So I'll just do this really quickly. The examples are always in gray. So if we have 1/5 x plus 1/4 y is 8, we're trying to get 4x plus 5y.
But
Yeah,
you don't solve for x and y, right?
I can't solve for x and y.
Right.
So what I can do is see what number would I multiply everything by. To get a 4x, I would multiply by 20, this by 20, and 8 times 20 would be 160. So this would equal 160. So let's try number 1.
So you're just trying to see what you did to everything.
Yeah, what I did to everything, because I can't solve for x and y. So if I go from 1/2 x to 6x, I have to multiply everything
3x,
by,
right?
yeah, 3x. I'm sorry. I have to multiply by a 6. I spoke
Right.
too early. So that'll be a 6. That'll be a 6. So I'll get 3x plus 2y. And since I'm multiplying everything by a 6, 8 times 6 would be what? 48. Do you see how to do one of those? Oh, you're so awesome. Okay, let's try this one. So how would I go from 4m to 8m? I would multiply everything by 2. Good. So 4m plus 2k, 2 times 2 is 4, right? Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. Okay, on the next page, and I'll let you turn there. So here I'm dividing. So I'm dividing everything by a 3. No, by a 2. What am I smoking? Sorry. So I'm dividing this by a 2. Oh, it's like an E. It's so hard. This by a 2, and 4k divided by a 2 would just be 2k. Okay, here we're dividing everything by 3. So we divide this by 3, this by 3. 30 divided by 3 would give us 10. I'm not going too fast, am I?
Once you realize the trick, these aren't that bad.
Yeah, once you got the trick underway, it's hard when you first look at it. You might say, I can't get x and y. So here, what am I dividing everything by? I'm dividing everything by 12. Divide this by 12. And 168 divided by 12 would give me 48.
14.
14, I'm sorry.
I know what you mean.
Okay. The last one's pretty easy. I'm dividing everything by 10. So 52 divided by 10 would just be 5.2. Right? So now if you had got that one of those questions, you would have the key to crack it. So at the beginning, in the orientation lesson, I shared with you that you're going to have to solve. You're going to get variables and you'll have to solve for another variable. So we have to solve this. We're trying to get the L to stand alone. So you can see what we did over here. We subtracted 2W, then we divided by 2, and oh, screen is, and then we're going to get answer choice D. So let's try one on the next page, because these are a little, this one is easy, but there's some that are hard here. We're almost home. Okay, thanks, Jim.
Mhm.
So A plus B is 12. So we just put 12 in for A plus B. So 12C is 36. Divide by 12, C is going to be 3. We're going to come back to this one. Let's go to the bottom one on the page. Let's try 4 first. Okay, so we have 5PQ minus 5PR plus P plus 6 equals negative Q minus 5. So if we try to subtract the 6 from both sides, we're going to get 5PQ minus 5PR plus P equals minus Q minus 11. So what can we're trying to solve for P.
So once you have all the P's on
So
one
once I
side,
have all the P's on this side, so I can factor out a P, and that will give me P times 5Q minus 5R plus 1 equals negative Q minus 11. It's a Q,
could you
sorry.
close that parenthesis?
I sure could.
Thank you.
So then all I have to do to get the P to stand alone is divide everything by this denominator, 5Q minus 5R plus 1. And I divide this by 5Q minus 5R plus 1. And I would
So they
get,
vaporize on the left, right?
yeah, so these all cross off.
Yeah.
And so I would get answer choice B,
I think it's C.
or C, I'm sorry.
Minus Q minus 11 over 5Q minus 5R plus 1.
Okay, is that, let me go through, take a rest, because I think I'm going sort of fast.
The hard part is just realizing you have to factor those P's
So if
out.
we're solving for P,
You
we
have to factor.
get all the P's on one side, and then we'll be good to go. Does that make sense? So Sailor's good, Jacob, you're good, Alyssa's good, and Julia's good. Good.
Back up.
Okay, let's try this one. So the reason they say y is not equal to minus 1 is just to protect their backs, because you can't divide by a 0, right? So that's only in there because if you put a minus 1 in, you'd have divisibility by 0, which can't happen. So here we have x equals 1 over y plus 1. And I don't know if you ever knew this, but you can, in a ratio, just switch these two. I had a class once and I said, did you know you could switch these two? And a Chinese student said, I learned that in 2nd grade. So really we can just have y plus 1 equals 1 over x. Last step, we cross off the in terms of x. We just need to get the y to stand alone. So we subtract 1. And we're going to get answer choice D.
C. You circled the right one. You just said D.
Oh, I'm sorry.
C. Yeah, you circled
I
it.
circled C. Sorry. I'm getting math weary myself.
Right.
Okay, guys. This is the hardest one. So these are all different numbers. We want to get x to stand alone. So we cross this off. So the first thing we can do is multiply both sides by x minus y. That'll give us b x minus y equals xy minus z. This is only if you get a real hard one. So this would be bx minus by equals xy minus z. I put a line through my z's so they don't look like
So if you're
Jews.
solving for x, we need to get all the x's on the same side.
So we have to get
I'm assuming.
all the x on one side. Does that make sense? If you get a hard one like this. Oh, good. I'm so proud of you guys. So let's subtract the xy. So we'll have bx minus xy, and we're going to add a by to this other side. That'll be by. It's a minus z. And like I said, I put a line in my z so you don't think they're twos. Okay, final step. What can I factor out of this? I could factor out an x b minus y equals by minus z all over b minus y, because that's what I divide both sides by. And hallelujah, I get answer choice A. Now that was a hard one. Who followed that? Julia, you good? Alyssa good? Jacob good? Sailor? Woo! Onward futures.
You're almost done.
Okay, now this one, we're almost done, like minutes. So this one looks pretty hairy. So let's pick numbers. You can even pick numbers in an algebra problem. And if it won't crack, pick a number. So let's say x is 6, y is 3, and that'll mean k is 2. So I want to get x plus y, which is going to be 9 over x is 6, and that's going to reduce to 3/2. I'll do the math way too.
So you just pick numbers that would work.
I picked numbers that would work.
Okay.
So which answer, if I put a k is 2 in here, would kick out the 3/2, and it's going to be answer choice B. Does that make sense? So if I did the algebra, it would be sort of horrific because I would have x over x plus y over x. So then I would get 1, and y over x would be 1 over k. And then I would have k over k plus 1 over k equals k plus 1 over k.
So you still got the same answer.
Yeah. So what we've learned tonight for strategies is you can pick a number, use the answer choices, and
Do algebra.
also circle the prompts, even in the reading. Okay, inequalities. We're covering all the math you ever had in your life, just telling you now. So you've had these before.
Open circle.
These are open. They don't include it. This is open. But if it has a line underneath it, it's going to be a closed circle. So let's try number 1. So we're trying to cover in this course all the math you ever had, but related to the SAT. So here we want to get x. So we're going to divide both sides by 40. So x is going to be greater than a minus 3/4. X is greater than minus 0.75.
Open circle.
Open circle, so we want A, not C. Because C is a closed circle. Good? Okay. The next one. Okay. If x is 2, what's the positive value of y that would work? This is what Jim talked about earlier. So we'll have y plus 8, which is less than 12. So y is less than 4.
And it's positive.
And it's positive. So we could put in 3, 2, or 1, but we only want to put one answer in there, okay? So sometimes, I'm just telling you, it'll be okay if you get multiple answers. You just pick the one. Now we're just doing what happens when you divide by a negative. So if we had this little inequality, we're going to subtract 18 from both sides. That'll give us negative 3p is greater than a negative 6. But what happens if I divide by a negative? The sign flips, right? Remember that? So all p is less than 2. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. I can't believe we're going to get done on time.
Yeah, you're doing pretty good.
It's a miracle. So this one we're going to multiply by 2 and by 2. And also you're cozy in your house and you don't have to travel anywhere. We didn't waste any travel time. 15 minus 3x is less than 24. So we're going to subtract 15 from both sides. That'll give us negative 3x is less than 9. We're going to divide both sides by a minus 3. But then we have to flip the sign. X is greater than a negative 3. And so that'll be, no, X is small.
No, that's right. That's what you did it.
I didn't,
You flipped it.
oh, okay, I did flip it.
Yeah, you did it. It's A.
So it's A.
Yeah. You're starting to say, you can tell when the math weirdness kicks
Yeah,
in.
the teacher gets the math weariness, then you gotta worry. Okay. In which of the following intervals does every value of X satisfy the inequality? So if I fly like an eagle above this question, do you see a negative? If I use these negative numbers, I'm never going to get anything greater than a positive. So I can cross these
So
off.
it can't be
It
negative.
can't be negative. So here, what's between a fourth of a pi and a half of a pi? We'll call X a third. And I put this problem on here because what happens when you divide by a fraction? So when you have 2 divided by 1/3, that's going to be 2 times 3, right? You flip the second number. Good. So that'll give us, is 6 greater than 3? Yes. And so answer choice C works. And the last page. Hallelujah. I know. But it's all going to pay off when you get your big scholarship. Right? Okay. So I don't know if you knew you can do this, but if you get a compound inequality, you can just do everything to all sections. So let's work at number 1. So we can subtract 6 from all these guys. That'll give us negative 10 is less than minus 2x, which is less than minus 5 1/4. And now we're going to divide everything by a minus 2, but we have to flip the signs. So this will be 5 is greater than x, which is greater than, what does it come out to, Jim?
2.625.
2.625. So you could put in a 3 or a 4.
But don't put them both in.
Don't put them both in. Last problem, drum roll, fireworks. So if we have minus 4 is less than 3 minus x, we're going to subtract 3 from everything. That'll give us minus 7 is less than a negative x, which is less than 6. But now, last
Divide
step,
by negative 1.
I have to
Flip
divide.
all the signs.
I have to divide by a minus 1. Flip all the signs. So I'll get 7 is greater than x, which is greater than a minus 6, which looks like it's going to be answer choice B. Okay,
And you're done on time.
we did it with just seconds to go. So wonderful meeting you all. And Jacob, you should get your package soon, okay?
So yeah, just make sure that you take a practice test on Blue Book sometime this weekend.
Sometime this weekend. You have a long weekend.
Holiday weekend.
Yeah, it's a holiday weekend, so a lot of you have Monday off.
And we included instructions in your box about
So
how to do it.
take a practice test. If you have any questions, here's Jim's phone number.
Don't just email Mrs. Hessler.
Jim is,
We're gonna put this on YouTube, so don't.
oh,
Yeah,
don't do that, because then the whole world will be harassing him.
that's
Sorry.
right. So yeah, just take a practice test. We have instructions in your box. It says Blue Book. That just tells you how to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday.
See you next Wednesday.
Yeah. Any
Thank
questions?
you.
Good night.
Any
Just say good
questions?
night.
Good night.
We'll say good night.
Au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. Okay, thank you guys. That was perfect. 8:30.